What up, guys? Welcome to the Son of Wanda Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 4 has dropped, so let's conversationalize. Alright, guys, so we have Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 4. The ending was great. Nothing else was. In one of my Ahsoka reviews, I think I mentioned, one of the things I liked about Ahsoka is I didn't feel like there was the filler episode, like the random side quest that we had to do instead of staying with the actual story, following the actual story. And I made this comparison. It's like if some random person, comes in the story. It's like, I know you guys are doing something really important. You're trying to save the galaxy. You're trying to stop the evil Sith Lord or whatever. But I need some fruit real quick. Can you go buy me some fruit? I desperately need some fruit. This episode felt like a lot of fruit. It felt like 98% fruit and only 2% was actually good. And it's really, really frustrating. I said in one of the videos I did before the season even came out about some of my theories for the season and all that, I said that if there were any filler episodes in this season, no, that is bad. There should not be. This is the final season. There are only 15 episodes. No reason for filler. None. And what do we have here? We have, I'm getting into spoilers, so be warned. Not that there's all that much to spoil. But we have Crosshair and Omega, and they escaped in the last episode, the end of episode 3, from Mount Tantus, from the Empire, but their ship was damaged, and we knew that, so it makes sense that they would not be able to fly the rest of the way to the Bad Batch or whatever. So they have to jump out of hyperspace and crash land on this random planet, and then go look for a ship. Now, we have seen this same scenario play out in Star Wars, let me see, 4.5 billion times. And I'm not necessarily mad at it. I'm just, at this point, I just kind of wish that we had a little bit more substance. Like, if we're gonna do that same thing again, I just want there to be something to remember it for. But there is absolutely nothing to remember this whole quest for. They go look for a ship, they go to a nearby spaceport, as always. And, I do like the dynamic of Omega and Crosshair working together, because you have the most lighthearted character in the show teaming up with the darkest character in the show. And by far, I thought Crosshair's episodes in the last season were, the best. They were so good. And so, again, I like the idea of a lighthearted character like Omega teaming up with a dark character like Crosshair. But at the same time, it just feels like it's kind of wasted, because they don't, I guess they sort of do this thing where it's like they show how Crosshair is just like, okay, we just need to get this job done as quickly as possible. I don't care what we have to do, we just need to find a ship. But Omega's all like, well, no, we need to make sure we don't hurt anybody, we need to find this, we need to do that. And I think the thing that I'm also confused in this episode about is, who made Omega in charge? She's the 12-year-old. What? I don't understand. It's just kind of weird. She's bossing Crosshair around, but it's well, she's the kid. Last I checked, if you have an adult, a significantly older adult than a child, that's the person leading the mission. It's just weird to me that, I guess it's because he was a bad guy, so he just kind of feels like he has to listen to her, but it's just strange to me that she's the one giving all the orders. Anyway, Crosshair wants to just take out all the stormtroopers in the spaceport that are guarding this ship and then take the ship, like they've done a lot in other shows. But for some reason, Omega in this one has just kind of decided, no, we don't need to do that. That's bad. We need to get some credits and try to bribe our way in order to get a ship. We need to bribe somebody to get a ship. And I'm just kind of well, you guys have done this 3,000 times. And I feel like it's just Disney continuing to Disneyfy Star Wars. Like, lightsabers aren't lethal anymore, and now we actually have to deliberate whether or not we should destroy a bunch of stormtroopers in order to get the ship that we need, even though we never had a problem with it the 5 billion times we've done it before. It's just getting more annoying and more annoying and more annoying, and once again we have the same issue. And Crosshair, like, he just wants to do it. He's just like, okay, let's take out the guys. I can take out the guys. We can take out the guys. And what's the most hilarious thing is that they end up doing that exact thing by the end of the episode, which makes every single thing they did throughout the middle in order to get the ship Omega's way pointless. And it's just like, oh my gosh, the final season is not the season to put a bunch of fruit. In fact, there is literally a kid in this episode that is offering someone fruit!
What is the deal? I'm in a glass case of emotion!
Fruit! I saw fruit! I literally saw it in this episode. It was not pleasant. But anyway, Omega and Crosshair need money in order to bribe a person. So they go to this bar, and then Omega starts gambling in order to get money. An Imperial officer shows up, and she gets some money by gambling with him. Then the Imperial officer takes some money, and then he takes their hound, the hound that she befriended in the last episodes, and then they have to save the hound. And amidst saving the hound, they just decide to shoot up the place anyway. Omega's like, okay, fine, Crosshair, we probably should just do it your way. And Crosshair's like, finally! And then he gets to shoot. There's actually a line in this episode that I think sums up the episode quite brilliantly. And it's Crosshair, Omega's like, well, if you don't want to help me save the hound, then I'll just go on my own and you can escape and I'll find another way. And of course, Crosshair can't leave Omega, so he stays with her. But he's honest with her and he's like, I feel like my skills are being wasted. I just want you to know that. And she's like, okay, that's noted. But it's like, I feel like it means a little bit more than the writers intended it to mean, I think, where it's like, yeah, his skills are being wasted, writers. He could have just done all this in the beginning of the episode and we could have saved ourselves 20 minutes. It's like everything good that's accomplished in this episode should have been accomplished in like 5 minutes, but instead it's accomplished in like 25 or so. It's just, and again, if this was not the first time, or if this was the first time that this kind of thing happened and we got like this filler episode and then we went about the rest of the story, I wouldn't mind it so much. But this is like the 58th time, especially when you consider not just Bad Batch, but times where it happened in Rebels. And I will say, in Rebels, Dave Filoni was a lot better about making the filler episodes end up meaning something later down the line that was important to the main story. So he ended up making all the filler episodes count in some way. But I feel like with Bad Batch, all these filler episodes thus far, with all the seasons, they genuinely feel pointless. It's like, why are we doing this? Why does this matter? Like, I don't care about this random whatever that we need to find. Like, I just want them to get to the next thing. It's like, it's the classic, like, you make a plot point that should last 5 seconds, last, like, infinitely longer. So instead of just finding a ship and then taking off, they have to, like, oh, wait, no, well, we can't do that. We have to find some other way. We have to bribe this person, and we need to get the money to bribe this person. In order to get the money, we need to gamble to get the money to bribe the person. And then we need to save the hound, because the hound got captured. It's just like, oh my gosh. And you could just feel the writers finding every way they possibly can to like, extend the story and stretch it out more than it needs to be. And it's so annoying, but the Imperial officer dies. He gets eaten by some random creature. They don't really show the creature. They just show a tentacle, like, getting the officer, and then he gets eaten. So there you go. But they shoot up the joint. They take the credits anyway that they've gathered. and they end up just stealing an Imperial ship. So they still have all the credits. So I have a feeling the credits will probably come in handy later down the line, but I still don't think that's enough to justify a whole episode dedicated to basically nothing. Then we get to the end, and this is by far the best part of the episode. Like, no question. We reunite Omega and Crosshair with Hunter and Wrecker. And Omega's reunion with Hunter and Wrecker is very sweet. She sends out a signal to let the Batch know that she's escaped, and she meets them on this remote moon. And it is a very touching moment that's, it's well done. And especially, you can tell that I love that they're emphasizing the father-daughter relationship between Hunter and Omega. I will say, I definitely did not expect Omega to find the Bad Batch and be reunited with them this early in the season. I thought it was going to be at least halfway before they did something like that. But we resolved that plot point pretty quickly, which it kind of scares me that we did that, because it's the same thing that kind of happened in Mandalorian Season 3, where Mandalorian, I guess, spoilers for that season if you haven't seen it, but Mandalorian, the whole plot point at first, the main plot is Mandalorian needs to go back to Mandalore and bathe in the waters in order to be cleansed of his, not be an apostate anymore because he was kicked out of the Mandalorian Creed for taking off his helmet and all that. That was resolved in the second episode, and then the rest of the season was mostly filler and pointless. I'm really worried that that's like we're running into the same thing here. Like, because Omega has already reunited with the Bad Batch, which is kind of what our main plot was going into this season, or we thought it was, then what's the rest of the season going to look like? Like, it better be something meaty. It better be something like with good story, and not we need to get a bunch of fruit for a bunch of different people. Like, it better not be that. I will be very upset. I'm so sick of fruit. But then we get Crosshair's reunion with Hunter and Wrecker, which is very different. Because Hunter asks Omega, he's like, well, how did you escape? Right, appropriate question. It's like, how in the world did you free yourself from the Empire by yourself? She didn't, and she's like, I had help, obviously, and then Crosshair walks out of the ship. And it's a really cool shot. You have, like, Crosshair on this side, walking out of the ship, and then Hunter, Wrecker, and Omega on the other side with their ship, but they're, like, looking at each other. And Hunter and Wrecker just get really serious, really stern. Crosshair just kind of has this demeanor of, like, I'm here, deal with it, sort of. It's just kind of like, I'm here, I might as well face you guys. I know it's coming, so I might as well just deal with it. But that's by far the most, like, suspenseful moment in the episode, where it's just like, oh, this is an interesting reunion. Because Hunter and Wrecker, I think, kind of had an idea that Crosshair might have, redeemed himself, or at least betrayed the Empire, like, broken off from the Empire. Because Crosshair had sent, like, a distress signal in the last season, so it's like, okay, maybe he is not bad anymore. But Hunter and Wrecker, obviously still, they remember him mostly. In recent memory, it's like, oh yeah, you're the guy who tried to kill us constantly, flat out betrayed us, and served the Empire, and, like, you're fired. And so, yeah, that is by far the moment where I'm like, oh, yeah, now this is good storytelling. This is, like, an interesting dynamic of, like, how is this going to play out? So it makes that, it sets up, the ending of this episode sets up the next episode, if they follow all that stuff, really, really well. Unfortunately, like, honestly, if the episode just started, even though their ship is damaged, they're still able to send out a signal to the Bad Batch, and then they meet up, and don't have to worry about the damaged ship anymore. It's like they can last a little bit longer. And then they have that same moment with the Bad Batch. The episode's like 3 minutes and then it ends. I would have liked that episode better, even if it was just 3 minutes. Instead, we get a bunch of fruit. We get a bunch of pointless filler. And it's annoying. I mean, I guess we do get another scene of, like, Dr. Hemlock talking to Nala Se, basically saying, hey, Nala Se, Omega and Crosshair escaped, and it seems like you have been intentionally trying to throw us off by destroying Omega's blood samples and trying to protect her secret and the fact that she did have a successful M count transfer, which again, it's not really. I'm not really entirely clear what that means. I think it's just basically if they are in fact trying to clone Palpatine in the last, as supposedly revealed in the last episodes, then his blood was able to mix with her blood, like the midichlorians were able to transfer to her blood without a problem, without diminishing. So, but clearly this is a secret that Nala Se has wanted to keep from the Empire. And again, I don't know, like, she seems very determined to, like, I didn't know about that. Like, obviously that's not right. Of course her blood wasn't, like, didn't get a proper M count transfer. That's preposterous. Like, she's really trying to cover it up. And I don't really know why, because it seems like at this point you would just be kind of like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, Nala Se clearly has her own ambitions and her own intentions, but Kamino, like, the whole cloning facility was destroyed, so she really has nothing left to protect unless she's really trying to protect Omega, because she cares for Omega so much. And it just is weird to me that this same Kaminoan, who did not give a mess about what happened to Fives or, like, any of the regular clones in Clone Wars, she was very mean. It doesn't make sense that she would find, like she would want to care for Omega so much. So, like, I feel like there's something else that needs to be revealed. There's something, like, a little bit extra here that needs to be talked about, just because it's like, basically what I'm getting at is, why would she have created Omega with the special type of blood that Omega has, and then not really, like try to keep that from the Empire? Like, what would have been, like, who would have told her to make Omega that way, like, special in that regard? Like, who would have told her to do that if it wasn't already the Empire or already Palpatine? Like, was that made as a contingency? Like, why would Omega be special if the Empire did not intend her to be? Because we know the Empire, or, like, Palpatine and the bad guys and all that, Dooku, also was manipulating the creation of the clone army behind the scenes. So I assume they would have manipulated the creation of Omega. But if they didn't even know that her blood was special, who told Nala Se to make her blood special? I don't know. Very interesting question on my mind. But I think the one little last detail in here is I noticed that Dr. Hemlock keeps holding his gloved hand. Like, every time he walks in a room, he's always holding his hand for some reason. But like this. It's very weird. And I don't know why he does that. But what's interesting is that in the last episodes, I didn't mention this, but Crosshair, his hands are shaking. I don't really know why. It's not really explicitly said, but his aim is kind of off because his hands are shaking for some reason. So I don't know if those are two things are somehow related, like whatever Dr. Hemlock has, like why he keeps holding his hand. Like, his hand's not shaking, but he keeps holding it. And, like, Crosshair's shaking hands. Like, I don't know if those things are related or not, but it is just an interesting detail. But we'll see where things go from here. I'm really hoping that we get some, like, bounty hunters and some cool action stuff in the next episode, and no more fruit, no more random dumb side quests, no more filler episodes. This has to be it. Like, if there's another one, it's just going to make the season feel more like, oh, so we're not putting our all into this. We're just having to pad out the runtime again. Like, what if they really need to pad out the runtime that much? They just need to make the season shorter. But even then, if they made the season shorter, there might still be filler, which is the problem. So, those are my thoughts on Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 4. Not a fan of the episode, as you probably have already guessed. I'm a fan of the ending. I loved the ending, but it felt like the ending was a completely different thing from the rest of the episode. Like, they keep trying to go back and forth between the dark, serious, like, Clone Wars tone and then, like, the lighthearted, like, pointless filler tone. And it's just, it does not work. So, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys thought about it down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a very blessed day. May the Lord be with you. May the Force be with you. Goodbye. And that's a wrap.